began as a love story that seemed destined for a lifetime of happiness. In the heart of Indianapolis, Marcus and Felicia Owen were the couple everyone admired. Young, vibrant, deeply in love, and ready to take on the world together. Their wedding was a breathtaking affair, filled with laughter, warm embraces, and the promise of forever. But forever would last only a matter of days. A luxurious honeymoon was meant to be the start of their beautiful journey, a time for them to revel in the joy of their new life together. Picturesque sunsets, cozy fireside evenings, the promise of a future brimming with adventure. Then, an emergency call. A frantic husband, a lifeless wife. A tragic accident, or a calculated plan. Authorities arrived to find Felicia's broken body at the bottom of a cliff, a scene that sent shivers down the spines of even the most seasoned investigators. But as the pieces of the puzzle came together, a question lingered in the air, like an unshakable shadow. Was this an unfortunate fall, or was someone standing at the top of that cliff, watching as she plunged to her death? Marcus, the devastated husband, painted a picture of heartbreak and loss, but within hours detectives found inconsistencies in his account. Something didn't add up. Felicia had been an experienced hiker. The terrain wasn't that dangerous. And then there was the money, $500,000 in life insurance, taken out just weeks before their vows. Had love turned into something far more dangerous? Had trust become the ultimate weapon? Felicia's family, shattered with grief, began asking their questions, and as investigators dug deeper, they uncovered secrets that would send shockwaves through their quiet community. A secret affair, a trail of financial desperation, and a husband whose story was beginning to fall apart with every passing hour. What happened on that cliffside? What was Marcus hiding, and how far would someone go to turn marriage into murder? Today we unravel the truth behind a love story that ended in tragedy, a case where romance and deception walked hand in hand, leading to a deadly end. Stay with us as we uncover the twisted tale of Marcus and Felicia Owen. You won't believe the twists that await. Marcus Owen was the kind of man who turned heads when he walked into a room. At 35, he had built a reputation as a smooth-talking financial advisor, someone who could sell a dream with the ease of a practiced storyteller. Dressed in tailored suits and driving the latest luxury car, Marcus exuded success. But success, as it would turn out, had come at a cost. And that cost would soon spiral into something far more dangerous than anyone could have imagined. Felicia Harris, now Felicia Owen, was the complete opposite. At 32, she was the heart of her community, a beloved elementary school teacher whose kindness seemed boundless, with a warm smile that could light up a room and a patience that made her adored by both students and parents alike. Felicia embodied everything good. She believed in love, in honesty, in building a future with the man she had chosen, but love in this case would be her downfall. Their life together began in Indianapolis, Indiana, a city that prided itself on its sense of community. The Owens lived in a picturesque neighborhood where trust was second nature. Neighbors knew each other by name. Block parties were a regular occurrence. It was the kind of place where doors remained unlocked, where danger felt like something that only happened on the evening news. But danger doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it hides in the places you least expect. When Marcus surprised Felicia with a honeymoon trip to a secluded cabin near Brown County State Park, she was ecstatic. The rolling hills, the tranquil surroundings, the escape from everyday life. It was everything she had ever dreamed of, a chance to disconnect from the world, to bask in the love she thought would last a lifetime. But as they packed their bags and drove down the winding roads toward their getaway, there was something Felicia didn't know, something no one could have predicted. This trip wasn't about love, it wasn't about romance, it was about death. And for Marcus, it was about cashing in on a plan that had been set in motion long before they ever said, "I do." What happened at that cabin? What led Felicia to that fateful moment on the cliff's edge? And when did Marcus decide that his wife, his new bride, was worth more dead than alive? The answers to those questions would shake a community to its core. And the truth would be even more horrifying than anyone could have imagined. Love was supposed to be the theme of their honeymoon. Smiling selfies, warm embraces, the glow of a new life together. Marcus and Felicia Owen shared it all online. Their friends gushed over their posts, envying the romantic getaway and the rustic charm of their secluded cabin near Brown County State Park. But what they didn't see, what no one could have imagined, was that every picture-perfect moment was leading to something far more terrifying. It was their third night in the cabin, a peaceful evening under the vast Indiana sky. The air was crisp, the stars stretched endlessly above them, and the sound of crickets filled the night. Then, just past midnight, a desperate call shattered the silence. 911, a frantic voice on the other end, Marcus Owen. She fell. My wife, she fell. My God, she slipped. Please, you have to help me. The dispatcher tried to calm him, gathering details. A late-night hike, a breathtaking view, a misstep in the dark, that's what Marcus claimed. But when emergency responders arrived, the reality was far grimmer than his frantic words suggested. Felicia's body lay at the base of the cliff, twisted in an unnatural position. Her skin was ghostly under the paramedics' flashlights. The fall had been devastating. But something wasn't right. Seasoned responders knew what a fall victim looked like, and this didn't add up. The injuries weren't consistent with a simple slip. The cuts, the bruises, they told a different story. A struggle, a fight, something far more violent than a tragic accident. Then came the footprints near the cliff's edge. Two sets, one leading to the drop, the other scuffed and erratic as if someone had been dragged or forced to the edge. Felicia wasn't just another hiker who lost her footing. Someone had been up there with her. And someone had made sure she never came back. As detectives arrived at the scene, Marcus crumbled under the weight of his own grief. His hands shaking, his breath ragged, his eyes swollen from what appeared to be relentless sobbing. He repeated the story again and again. We were just looking at the stars. She lost her balance. I tried to grab her, but she just slipped. It could have ended there. A tragic accident, a grieving husband, a loss that would haunt him forever. But the investigators weren't so sure, because just hours before Felicia's fatal fall, witnesses had seen something that didn't fit the picture of a happy, loving couple. An argument, a heated exchange outside a quiet cafe in town. Felicia's voice rose, her hands gesturing wildly. Marcus stood stiff, his face cold and unreadable. And then, a moment that would send chills down their spines, Felicia's words, overheard by a waitress who would later recall them to the police. I know what you're doing, Marcus. And I swear I won't let you get away with it. She didn't know it then, but Felicia had just signed her death warrant. Had she uncovered something? Had she realized, too late, that the man she had vowed to spend forever with had no intention of keeping that promise? The officers at the scene took note of Marcus's injuries. Small scratches along his arms, the kind you get when someone fights back. His clothes were disheveled. His story was rehearsed but unraveling at the edges. Felicia's phone, retrieved from her pocket, held the final piece of the puzzle. A message unsent, typed out but never delivered. If anything happens to me tonight, it was Marcus. Her last words, her final warning, and the damning evidence that would turn this case upside down. Stay with us, because the next moments in this investigation will reveal secrets even more shocking than anyone could have expected. The news of Felicia's death spread like wildfire. In the quiet streets of Indianapolis, where neighbors shared Sunday barbecues and watched each other's kids grow up, tragedy wasn't just a headline, it was personal. Friends and family gathered around Marcus, offering their condolences and their support. They spoke of his heartbreak, the way his hands trembled when he spoke about Felicia, the vacant look in his eyes. To them, he was a husband crushed under the weight of loss, a man who had just lost the love of his life in a horrific accident. But for the authorities, something wasn't sitting right. Marcus's version of events, the one he repeated over and over with a quivering voice, had cracks that couldn't be ignored. The timing, the location, the way Felicia supposedly fell, small details that, on their own, meant little. But together, they painted a picture that was starting to look less like a tragic accident and more like something else entirely. And then, detectives uncovered something that changed everything. Weeks before their wedding, Marcus had taken out a life insurance policy on Felicia, $500,000. A policy that, in the event of her untimely death, would go directly to him, a grieving husband devastated by the loss of his wife, and yet, a man who stood to gain more in her death than in her life. That alone wasn't enough. People took out life insurance policies all the time, but what came next sent a chill through the investigative team. Marcus Owen was drowning in debt. Not just any debt, crippling, life-destroying debt. Casino records showed he had lost thousands at high-stakes tables, drained multiple credit cards, and taken out loans he couldn't repay. He wasn't just desperate, he was drowning. And Felicia? She may have known more than she let on. A search of her phone unearthed something shocking. Days before the honeymoon, Felicia had been searching for signs of a cheating spouse. Call logs showed repeated attempts to contact a number that detectives later traced back to a divorce attorney. Felicia had planned a meeting that would have taken place immediately after they returned from their honeymoon. She had suspicions, she had doubts, and perhaps she had finally realized she was married to a man who had been lying to her all along. The pieces were beginning to align. A financially ruined husband, a wife on the verge of leaving, a massive life insurance payout. But was it proof of murder? Investigators weren't done yet, and what they found next would confirm their worst fears. Everything was set to close. A grieving husband, a tragic accident, and a community rallying around a man who had just lost the love of his life. But just when it seemed like Felicia Owen's death was an open and shut case, the investigation took a turn, one that no one saw coming. 2 weeks after Felicia's funeral, detectives received an anonymous tip. A hiker who had been exploring the trails near Brown County State Park that night recalled something unsettling. He hadn't thought much of it at first, just another couple having a late-night argument. But as he listened closer, something about the exchange stuck with him. The voices were heated. The man was accusing the woman of betrayal. The woman's voice trembled, pleading, begging, and then a sudden silence. A silence that was followed by a sound he would never forget. A scream. A single, blood-curdling scream that ended as abruptly as it had begun. And then, nothing. Investigators immediately revisited Marcus Owen's statements. According to him, the night had been serene. An evening of stargazing and whispered confessions of love before tragedy struck. But the witness's account painted a different picture. Marcus claimed Felicia had been ahead of him on the trail, admiring the view, when she suddenly lost her footing. But how could that be, when someone had heard an argument right before her fall? Then came another revelation. A forensic analysis of Felicia's body raised eyebrows. The injuries didn't match what would be expected from a fall of that height. Yes, there were fractures and bruises, but there was something else. Something damning. Blunt force trauma to the back of the head. The kind of injury that doesn't happen from tumbling down a rocky slope. The kind of injury that comes from an impact, a forceful one. Investigators began re-examining everything Marcus had said. And then, another crack in his story. Cell phone records placed Marcus near the cliff hours before the time he claimed they had gone hiking. His call to 911 was frantic, laced with desperation. But was it genuine, or was it the performance of a man trying to cover his tracks? And then, perhaps the most incriminating piece of all, a look into Marcus's personal life revealed a secret Felicia had likely just uncovered before their honeymoon. Marcus wasn't just struggling financially, he was drowning. His debts were piling up and creditors closing in. And Felicia, just weeks before their wedding, Marcus had convinced her to take out a substantial life insurance policy with him as the sole beneficiary. But that wasn't the only betrayal Felicia may have discovered. Phone records revealed Marcus had been exchanging frequent messages with a colleague, messages that grew increasingly intimate. The nature of their relationship? Investigators soon uncovered that Marcus had been having an affair. Was Felicia planning to confront him? Had she found out on the honeymoon? Had their so-called romantic getaway been a setup all along? Everything was unraveling, and Marcus Owen was no longer just a grieving husband. He was now the prime suspect in what was beginning to look less like an accident and more like premeditated murder. The walls were closing in. Every piece of evidence, every contradiction in Marcus's story had built a case so airtight that even he could feel the inevitable tightening around his fate. Then came the moment no one expected: his arrest. A team of officers descended on Marcus's sleek suburban home, where he had been living as though nothing had happened. The neighborhood watched in stunned silence as he was led away in handcuffs, his expression one of cold detachment, offering no words, no resistance. In the courtroom, the prosecution laid everything bare. The jury listened as Felicia's last moments were reconstructed, piece by piece, from the bruises inconsistent with a fall to the financial records that painted a damning picture of motive. The life insurance policy was taken out mere weeks before the wedding. The mountain of debt threatens to collapse his double life of gambling and deceit. The affair, a secret Marcus had worked tirelessly to keep buried, until now. The most damning evidence, however, was Felicia herself. Her phone records, her search history, the messages to friends about her growing suspicions. She had been putting the pieces together, unaware that she was running out of time. When the verdict was read, the air in the courtroom was thick with tension. Guilty on all counts. A collective exhale rippled through the gallery. Marcus barely reacted, as if he had known all along this would be his fate. The judge's words sealed it. Life in prison, no possibility of parole. For Felicia's family, there was no victory in the sentence, no punishment could bring her back. But they refused to let her story end in tragedy alone. In her name, they created the Felicia Harris Foundation, a beacon of hope for victims of domestic violence, offering support, legal aid, and a voice to those who felt trapped in silence. The case shook Indianapolis, a city that had watched from a distance, first in admiration of the Owens' picture-perfect love, then in horror at the dark truth beneath it. It served as a stark reminder that even the brightest smiles can conceal the darkest secrets, and that love, in its truest form, is never built on lies and betrayal. Felicia's legacy would not be defined by the man who took her life, but by the countless lives she would go on to save. The tragic tale of Marcus and Felicia Owen is a haunting reminder of how quickly love can turn into something else entirely. A relationship that once seemed filled with promise unraveled into deception, betrayal, and a desperate quest for money. But at what cost? A life cut short, a family left shattered, a community forced to confront the reality that danger doesn't always come from the shadows, it can be right beside you, hidden behind a familiar face. Felicia's story isn't just a case to be analyzed, it's a warning about the red flags we sometimes overlook, the instincts we silence, the gut feelings we push aside because we want to believe in the people we love. But the truth has a way of breaking through, even when someone does everything in their power to bury it. What do you think? Did Marcus's actions signal his true intentions all along? Could Felicia's fate have been avoided? Were there warning signs that no one recognized until it was too late? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's keep this conversation going because understanding stories like Felicia's might help prevent another tragedy. If you found this case compelling, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us continue to uncover the truth behind the most gripping true crime stories. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. We have more cases coming, and trust me, you won't want to miss what's next. Thank you for watching. Stay vigilant, stay aware, and remember, sometimes the most dangerous people are the ones you never see coming. Until next time, stay safe.